Open up your Bibles in Genesis chapter 10. We're going to start there and then work through the Tower of Babel.
While you're going there, two quickies.
Sure.
Last night I was looking for a washer dryer because I don't want to carry that one down. And this lady puts one on and it's unbelievable deal. And I said, Lord, this would be nice. Today I got an email back, we're going to get it after church.
Awesome.
So, but number two is, this lady was blind at 16, she had a car wreck and she was pregnant and everybody was, she's doing a sonogram. So this kid comes in, one of these tech kids, and he says, I can take that sonogram and I can build a baby because I got a 3D printer. And he did.
Are you
So
serious?
she goes back in for the
But she can't see the sonogram.
She can't see it,
She can feel it.
but she felt the baby's little hands and everything. And she said, and as Caleb says, the joy just welled up and just came out her eyes.
Incredible.
And that's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
We're here to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Not this garbage that's going on everywhere.
Right.
Let's
There was a little girl, baby a while back, that had to have heart surgery for her. But she had to have heart surgery, and the doctors didn't know what to expect when they got in there. So they did a 3D print of her heart, and that way they could look at it and examine it. That's just amazing. I tell you, if you want to invest some money, find a good 3D printer, start putting some money in stocks, because that's the coming thing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're already down to about $1,000 for some of them. So I mean, they're going to be affordable for the home, for people at home.
Well, Collingwoods have just crossed over that line where they're affordable, so.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, in Genesis 10, chapter 10, verse 25, we talked about before about how the earth was split, and we talked about how the flood could have come through this expanding earth theory or through Pangea, they call it the supercontinent, that was spread into all the continents we have now. But if you go here to Genesis chapter 10, verse 25, it says, I'm going to see if this will work if we get it up here.
Is it 3D?
No, it's just magnified. Verse 25, that doesn't put the whole thing in there. But anyway, 25, and unto Eber were born, and these numbers, I'm going to show you something about those in a minute. It says, unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days was the earth divided. And his brother's name was Joktan. Well, we're a few years past the flood. We're going to talk about this in a minute. We're a few years past the flood, and actually when the Tower of Babel was built, we're about 100 years past the flood. So maybe 3 generations, 2.5, 3 generations coming up after that. But we know that God destroyed the world because of the wickedness. And if you believe what some of the scholars say, that all the DNA in the earth except for Noah and his family were polluted with this blood of the giants. And Satan was trying to cut off the godly bloodline that Christ would come through. Well, all of a sudden we find again, I mean, just 2 or 3 generations after Noah, the earth's full of wickedness again. It's just amazing how that, and we don't know, but it could be that we know that the giants, the angels fell again and came unto women like they did the first time, and giants were born. We know it happened again because King David, when he was king, he killed Goliath, and he took 4 other stones with him because Goliath had 4 brothers. And you see in the Old Testament, he ends up killing those other 4 off eventually. And people say, well, he had, he picked ones that were smooth. I'm sure he did for the trajectory and all that. I never realized how serious that a weapon that is. I was watching on the news one night, and they showed Israel, these Arab boys running out and use them against the Israelis, the military. Man, you're talking some serious firepower. Well, you think about Goliath, that went into his forehead, killed him. So you're talking a serious weapon.
No smoke.
No smoke, no sound, except maybe a but just amazing. And so anyway, the earth again is just as evil as it can be, and it could be that the angels had fallen already. But we see that the earth was separated. We talked about this a little bit before about where all the continents came from. When the earth was flooded in Noah's flood, it says the flood was 15 cubits high. Well, in our terms, that's 23 feet. A cubit was about 18 inches, a foot and a half. Normally from here to a man's elbow. Of course, it's like hands on a horse. Everybody's hands are a little different, but they have a standard hand on a horse. Same thing with cubits. But the flood was 23 feet. So and some versions of the Bible say it was 23 feet above the mountains. Well, which is right? Was it 23 feet or was it 23 feet above the mountains? Well, if you figure Mount Everest is what, 32,000 feet? That's a lot of water. But the earth wasn't like that then. We see that the earth was flatter, it was smoother, and a 23-foot flood flooded the whole earth. And we're going to see something that kind of proves that out here a little more too. But it's believed that during Peleg's time, is when the earth completely split apart. The mountains were pushed up and all this stuff. This had to have started pretty much at the time of his birth or before for them to name him Peleg, which his name means division or earthquake, and I'll show you that in a minute. So when you think about it, the earth is splitting. Think about the earthquakes that would be going on in this world. I mean, you think about it. I mean, it would just be crazy. And there were a couple of Christian archaeologists that I've seen the show 2 or 3 times on the History Channel. I've been meaning to buy a copy of it. But they were talking about how that the earth could have separated like that and split into everything that it did in a short period of time. Does anybody know what cavitation is? We used to deal with it in the refinery. You'd get a pump sometimes if you got it going too fast or something. It sounded like it had gravel in it. I mean, it make all this crazy noise. Well, it'll eat the metal out of the pump within an hour or 2. I mean, it'll literally eat the metal out of the pump. And what it is just the hydrocarbons coming through the liquid gets to going crazy in there, and it just eats everything out. Well, down at Lake Powell in Arizona by Utah, they have the Glen Canyon Dam. Well, they decided that they needed to flood the Colorado River and build back up the beaches and all this stuff, the natural little beaches all along. And they did this it's been quite 15 years ago now, but they opened the spillways around this big Glen Canyon Dam. It's a big dam. Well, they opened them up and it got so violent, the water started cavitating through and they had metal, like culverts going through there that are like higher than the ceiling, they're probably 16 feet high. The water started going through, well, it ate through those culverts, those metal culverts, and then started eating all the slick rock, the sandstone out. And they thought, we've got to shut this thing off. This whole dam's going to go down the mountain. It's going to just eat the whole sides out. And they were only able to do that for a couple hours when it started getting so bad. Well, these guys talked about, by looking at all that, they calculated and did some things. They said that the whole Grand Canyon could have been made in 6 weeks by cavitation, by flooding. So it kind of stands with, and they were talking about this theory, how they believe the earth was split during this guy's lifetime.
Actually, one of my students did a thing about how long it took to make the Grand Canyon, and he did it 3 different ways. The least amount of time was 4 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that stands with
Yeah.
what they were saying.
And so when we look at, and it goes along with that thing, I don't know, when I was a kid, stalactites and stalagmites used to, and that's how they originally decided how old the earth was. And it's funny because they found this cavern, because they said it took at least 100 years for one of them to form and close up. They actually watched one close up and form, and took 3 days.
Wow. Yeah.
So, we just don't.
It's like even Mount Everest when it blew. Not at Everest out
Yeah, the volcano up here.
in Washington.
Yeah.
No,
No.
come on, 1980s.
No.
St. Helens, yes.
Mount St. Helens. Today, the inside of Mount St. Helens looks as old as the Grand Canyon. And they're saying the Grand Canyon is like 1 billion years old, this and that.
Yeah.
It's the same exact looking age. And that was going back 10 years ago too. Yeah, so they're close.
Yeah, they don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
carbon dating, you measure, carbon in it, how old it is, but you don't know how much carbon was ever started with. You know
Right.
what 0 was.
Right.
Right, yeah, which is.
It's not always 0, it's always nothing. Sometimes you have a high carbon content.
Well, and we've also revised carbon dating.
Oh, yeah.
Scientists have revised the math that goes with carbon dating 6 times.
Oh, wow.
So how true is it?
In Utah, they had a road that went out to what they call Angel Arch. And they have a lot of the arches and stuff. And they were going to shut that road off because they thought it was the ecological impact was too bad on this road. When you're in the desert, how much damage are you going to do? So they're going to shut off. So I thought, I got to get down there. It was way in southern Utah. So I thought, I got to get down there before they shut off and go away because it was an 8-mile hike if you didn't, and it's all sandy and then water. So I drove out there and checked it out. It's pretty neat because it really does look like an angel with wings and stuff of this arch. And I actually blew a U-joint out on that trip. On that time, I'll never forget it. But they finally shut that road off, and they said it'll take 50 years or 100 years for it to grow back and cover that road. 3 years later, there were trees that big around, and you couldn't tell there had been a road. So, scientists don't know. Science changes, and let me tell you too about Bible translations. You got to realize that not all Bible translations are exactly right.
Right.
A lot of times, like you take the Amplified, I love the Amplified most of the times, but it's men's ideas they're putting in there. It's commentary. And men's ideas are not always God's word, right? So you got to be careful when you read the word of God that you really know what it's saying. I'm going to show you how to look at the Hebrew and the Greek. It's real simple if you have a Strong's Concordance. And I got one online here I'll show you. But or on a computer program. But realize that, well, the King James is pretty good, most of all. For most things, the King James is pretty close to the Hebrew and Greek. There are a couple times in there that they translated to words back in the late 1600s when they did the King James, and they're not exactly the same words we use today. Like one of them says, one of the works of the flesh is witchcraft. Well, if you look at the Greek word for that, the Greek word is pharmakia, where we get our word pharmacy. Well, what did witches do? Witches made brews, they made potions and all this stuff, the drugs. And so I think what they were saying was drugs, the work of the flesh. So, illegal drugs and that kind of thing. So you have to realize they translated to their thinking of that time. And then also a lot of the Living Bible, was a paraphrase. It was a good thing to read. And like the New Living Translation, I love.
Yeah.
It's a great translation. But I don't study them. I always go back to the King James and study that. When I'm just reading, I read the New Living. I love it. So
How about the ESV?
ESV's good. I wondered about that when they first started. They got them all here and stuff. But yeah, the ESV is a good one. Matter of fact, it's one of my favorites.
You got any website about all these?
No. But if you are looking up a verse online, if you put one verse in, like say John 3:16, you can pull it up on Bible Hub, and it'll give you a bunch of different translations for that one verse.
In Greek
And that's
and
really
Hebrew?
good. Huh?
In Greek and Hebrew?
No, just translated.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah. You can actually find them, I think, if you look for the Hebrew. I know in Bible Gateway, you can go, Bible Gateway is when I want to look at a whole
That's
chapter,
right, yeah.
and then you can change which version you're reading the whole chapter in Bible Gateway. And they also have some studies for Hebrew and Greek that you can go in. Actually, a little bit more than the Strong's. But let me make sure I'm the right spot here, and we'll talk about this. What we're going to do in this verse to talk about when the earth was split, I want to show you three words. I want to show you the word divided. Get this thing off the top of here. That should take, okay. It says, and unto Eber were born two sons, the name of one, which was Peleg. We're going to look at his name. And it says, for in his days the earth was the earth, we're going to look at earth, and divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Well, what do those words really mean? Well, we'll start with earth. Because if you read a lot of translations, they'll say that's when God split man up. That's when he divided this nation from this nation and this nation from this nation. And they want to say that's when the languages were divided too. Well, we're not there yet. We're going to find the next chapter is when Babel comes along, and this is happening before that. So let's take a word first. And this is called word search software. We start here. If you just read it, like I've got American Standard Version, the God's Word Edition, and King James. I can click between those. But if you read it, this is what it's like. And when you're on a scripture, I don't know if you can see that very well, but it highlights what scripture you're on. Well, if you click this little pound sign or number sign, we used to call it, all you guys know we used to call it number sign. It's going to pull up
You're with it, Jay.
what's that?
It's a hashtag.
Oh, okay, hashtag. I don't know what they are. I'm not a tweeter. Okay, and see how these green letters come with numbers come up? Realize the Old Testament is written in Hebrew and Chaldee, mostly Hebrew. The New Testament is written in Greek. So anytime you go here, what it does, this gives you the numbers for the Strong's Concordance. I was going to bring mine, I couldn't find it, but I've got two of them actually. I've got a big hardbound, one that's like a big family Bible, huge.
That's the one
And then I got a paperback one that the letters are like, but it's
I
got,
can't even imagine that in paperback.
oh, it's tiny. But the Strong's Concordance has every word in the Bible, including a and the. It has every word there is in the Bible. So what it does, it gives you the way it was written in Hebrew, the way it was written in Greek, and then it gives you the transliteration. In other words, the way we spell it in English, if we're still saying the Greek or the Hebrew word. So anyway, when we look at these, let's go down here to verse 25. And it says, unto Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, and in his days was the earth divided. So if you look here, earth, the number right after it is H776. That means Hebrew, which everyone in the Old Testament is going to be H. And it's 776. When I study, I keep the Word of God here, I keep Dave's notes here, and I keep Strong's Concordance there. That's the way I break my page up. But if you click on here, and you can do this if you have the book, you go in there and you look up you take the verse, like this is Genesis 10:25, you look up and you see the word, so you would look up earth in the Strong's Concordance. And then it'll give you a number It'll show you all the verses that word's used. And it'll have a number over there, and then you go to the back, and you've got an index between, that's Hebrew and Greek. If it's the Old Testament, you look that number up in the Hebrew. If it's New Testament, you look it up in the Greek, okay? So we're gonna look at Earth just by clicking on this, which makes it so nice. If I can get my mouse to cooperate. There's my slide over there. Very good. Okay, Earth, it's H776. And it'll pop up here too, but I like to pull it up over there so I can look at it a little bigger. Okay, I want everybody to be able to see. Okay. Okay, see Hebrews 776, and if you have a Vine's expository dictionary, it also has words from the Bible, and they are corresponding numbers. So they work hand in hand, and that's, if you really want to study, it's good to have the Vine's expository dictionary too. But for sure, you need a Strong's Concordance. It's amazing. Anyway, like here's the Greek word for earth. Now, I don't know how in the world they draw that stuff. I know they got it from right to left, other than like we go left to right. But that's what it looks like in Hebrew. This is how it's transliterated. It would be the apostrophe E-R-E-S, Eris is how it's pronounced. And you can actually, let's see, if you turn my speaker on, you can hear it speaking here. I don't know if it'll be loud enough to try it. Eretz is how it's pronounced. Eretz.
That's
So-
Earth, right? You said Earth?
That's earth. That's the word for earth that uses there. The earth was divided. And like I say, some of the Bible translations will say the nations were divided. Well, they're taking that word wrong, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Let's see. It can't possibly be earth, but most of the time, what happened, you think, when the earth was divided like that? What happened? There were people here, there were people there. When it split up, guess what? Those people went with wherever they split. If you're on an iceberg, you got 50 people out, and it's split some 50 pieces. You got 50 different people in different places. So, anyway, it tells you here, we're going to go on down, it's got different things here, like Vine's word, the expository dictionary, they call it land. Instead of earth, they call it land. If you go down here, it says English words used in the King James Version. These are the words it's translated into and how many times it's translated. It's translated a total of 2,504 times. That's how many times earth is in the Bible. Well, here, 1,543 times it's translated land. 712 times it's translated earth. So see, the majority of the time it's talking about earth, land, country, 140 times, ground, 98 times, world, 4 times, way, 3 times, common, 1 time, field, 1 time, nations, 1 time. So see, where some Bibles want to say the nations were divided, it's used 1 time as nations and 1,543 times as earth, as dirt, land. So I think what the Bible's showing us is sure enough the earth split. And I'll show you some other things about that word too. All right, let's go back here. Oh, it says right here too. It says it's from an unused root. Hebrew uses root words a lot. And I don't really understand that. I was trying to read some things about it today. But all their words come from root words. Like our words come from like Spanish or French, and then we made English words out of them. Well, the Hebrew, all of the words come from a root word. And so the root word here says from an unused root, probably meaning to be firm, like your ground would be. The earth, at large or partitively a land. And so it says, these are other ways it could be translated: common, country, earth, field, ground, land, nation's way, wilderness, world. So most of the time it's to be translated as visible dirt, earth. And that's what we're seeing here is the earth is split. So let's go back to our verse. And let's look at divided. This is the one here. Okay, it says, and was the earth divided? So let's look at this. It's H6385. And we'll get to look at that a couple times, get it to go over there. There we go. And it says it was divided. So what does that word divide mean? Well, again, here's the Hebrew, which in the transliteration is polog. That slash is actually like an aw type sound. And polog, let's see if he'll speak it for us here.
Polog.
Yeah, polog. And you see the emphasis is on the last syllable. You see that here. So polog, and it's a primitive root word. If you go to Vine's words, Vine doesn't cover that. It's probably so common they don't cover it. But if you come down here, it's used 4 times in the Bible. That's all, that's it, 4 times. And if you go to the, like say the book, you open it up, it'll actually show you every time it's used. But a primitive root to split, or literally to divide, to split or divide is what that word means. So we're seeing the real earth, the earth is being split. If you look at Peleg's name, let's pull him up. This is where it kind of gets started to get interesting. Age 6389. That's wrong. There we go. Okay. If you look at his name, what is up here? Earthquake. And other places it says divide. But like I said, think about it, the earth is splitting apart. You think about that. I mean, all those tectonic plates moving and the earth opening up. If you believe in that expanding earth theory, or even Pangea, where everything splits, there had to be tremendous earthquakes going on. You know, my dad, he had an 8th grade education, one of the smartest men I ever knew. But he said, you know, he had to go to work. And he said, when he was in school, he said, I remember being told that there were no active earthquakes or volcanoes anywhere in the world. Look at it now. And the Bible tells us that in the last days, earthquakes will be like crazy, you know. Of course, we're seeing volcanoes, earthquakes. And matter of fact, just the last few days, they've had a bunch of them in Texas, up to Wisconsin, and over to California. They're not huge, but they're, you know, 2.5 to 5, which is big enough. If you look here, they have the number up here, and you can scroll down to different numbers. What Strong did, the funny thing about Strong, they said that he hardly ever went to church. Said if you ever knew the guy, he said he was kind of gruff, wouldn't talk much, and you wouldn't know the guy's a Christian, but he wrote one of the best study tools ever for the Christian, the Strong's Concordance. I mean, really, everybody ought to have one of these. It's amazing. You know, you can study Greek and Hebrew, you'll never remember it if you don't keep into it, but if you have this tool, it opens up the Bible to you. It just opens it up. So if we go up here, what he does, he puts all these words together, like he'll have the root, and then the numbers, the other words that are close to that come off that root number. So if we go up here, let's look at 6389 is for Peleg. But let's see how you pronounce it here.
Peleg.
Peleg, how you pronounce it. Let's see what 6390 is. 6390. It's from that same root. Get that out of the way. A runlet or a gully, a division or a river. And you think about it, the earth's dividing, it's making gullies and things like that. Let's go down to the next one.
Was he married? Did he have a life?
Who, Strong?
Yeah.
I don't know if he was married or not. I just heard he
You
was
do all
married.
this stuff without computers.
Oh, can you imagine? That's like the Date Bible, all the notes that guy has, there are hundreds of thousands of notes. He did all without a computer. But he had a gift. He got baptized in the Holy Spirit when he was young. And God gave him this gift that you could give him any scripture and he could just tell you instantly what it was. And that's why, because he did that noted Bible. Matter of fact, I met a guy that actually, he had a Bible school years later, and I met this guy that went to his Bible school. And I said, was that really true? I mean, because you hear things sometimes, you wonder. And he said, we used to find the most obscure scripture references we could, and we never could trip him up. But that's exactly why, because he wrote this, so many notes and stuff. This next word, paluga, and it means a section or a division. Let's go to the next one. So you see all these come off that root word. It's telling you it's dividing things up, it's splitting things. Here's another one, division. Paluga again, division. Different word. Next one. Meaning to divide, a cleaver, like a cleaver would divide something. And then an armature or a chariot or torch. Okay. One more. Let's see what we got. Okay, that's going into a different root word. Let's go back this way. Let's try a small channel of water, palag, or peleg again. It's just a different type of word. A small channel of water is irrigation, river, stream. Let's try one more. A half divided is pelag. Pelag is how you say it pronounced, but it's a half or a divided. So everyone was showing you that it's division. It's causing a split. One of them talks about a cleft, like you'd have a cleft in a rock. You remember when Moses struck the rock and it broke in half and the water flushed out? And then he was supposed to, we know, to speak the second time he didn't, like I probably wouldn't have done either. And the water came out, but he had to pay the price for that. He couldn't go in the promised land. Isn't that something? You know, God's so merciful and gracious to us, isn't he? You think about the Old Testament like that, it's just amazing how we get by with so much more. Praise the Lord. Because
He walked with God.
yeah, he
He
did.
should have known better.
I have to agree with you.
And he took the glory for it. It wasn't just that the water didn't come out. He said, okay, you guys happy we did it?
Yeah,
And he was still whining about it 3 chapters later.
yeah, he was a whiner.
Yeah, I used to think God wasn't fair there, but I'm not sure. Yeah,
Yeah, but if I was around in the Old Testament days, I would have been stoned to death at a very early age.
I can remember when the earth swallowed up the priest, that would have been me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
boy, I'll tell you what. You know, that's an interesting thought too. We're going to cover that when we get to it. It says that, oh, well, I always know what his name is, so I can't think of it now. The guy got swallowed up. But anyway,
Abner?
Korah and his associates talks about. They were complaining against Moses. They weren't complaining against God. They were complaining against, you know, the Bible says that.
No, they're complaining against God. You complain against God's servants, you complain
That's
against God.
So I'm going to say the Bible says that about, you know, the prophets. If you turn against a prophet, and it says if you take the last one, you get a prophet's reward. So they were complaining against God by complaining against Moses. But it says the earth opened them, and I'm sure it'd be that same word, eretz, and swallowed them to hell, straight to hell.
Every 10
Well, so you know, it makes me wonder, you know, there used to be a hollow earth theory. Has anybody ever heard that?
Yeah.
It was a big thing up until about 1950s, 1960s. For centuries, it was a big thing. Everybody thought the earth was hollow. Matter of fact, Admiral Byrd, that went to the North Pole and all that stuff, South Pole, there's a story that he was flying his airplane, and they were going, I think, to the North Pole this time. Could have been the South Pole. But the story is that the poles are open. There's openings. Of course, you know, there's no land on the North Pole, it's just ice and stuff. South Pole, there's land, but of course it's covered in ice. But they believe in this hollow earth theory that the openings to the inside of the earth are on the poles. And anyway, it says he was flying along, and all of a sudden, they're surrounded by these other aircraft coming in, and the airplane just starts flying itself. They can't control it. And they land it and everything else, they get out, and it's like a tropical paradise. And they're talking, and they go in, they talk to him and all this stuff. Well, he supposedly writes all this down. And then when he comes back, they let him out of this thing, and he comes back, and they won't let him publish it. Well, I don't probably believe it's really true, but anyway, y'all look it up sometime. Look at Admiral Byrd and his trip to paradise or something. It's interesting reading. But if you read how Korah and his people were swallowed to hell, hell's got to be down there, right? I mean, we always think of hell being under the earth. Well, is it? I mean, I tend to believe that heaven and hell and all that are different dimensions.
Why
And,
couldn't it be like,
what's that?
magma would be like fire?
That's true. That is true.
Well, you start in the Bible, it says, he says, like, I go to the third heaven, is that John? Okay, so there has to be 3, and one of them is the heaven we can see.
Right. And what's the atmosphere? And then the universe.
See, I just thought the atmosphere and the heavens and all of that, because David praises all of that,
Yeah.
but I thought hell was the second heaven.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's just, you know, I mean, it's one of those things, because they don't talk about it, and it has to be another realm.
Right.
So why didn't he say anything, if that's another heaven where, you know, where we might go? I think he would say something about it when he doesn't. So.
Well, I think when Jesus said, he said, the kingdom of heaven's at hand. He said, behold, the kingdom of heaven's at hand. My daughter said one time, she was real little, and it was profound. My brother died when he was 21, I was 18. And she always had this fixation. She never met him. I mean, she wasn't even born when he was alive. But one day she said, you know, Jake, she said, Dad, she said, David's just right there. He's just right there. And she was a year and a half old. I mean, she was like little tiny, out of the mouths of babes. And so when Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is at hand, the kingdom of God's at hand, that means we can reach right in and take out what's ours. And I believe it's a different dimension. I believe, you know, we're limited in this dimension with this earth suit we wear.
Yep.
You know, Kenneth Hagin starts calling an earth suit because the spaceman's got to have a spacesuit. He goes out in that vacuum of space, he dies without it. Same here, we can't live on this earth without our earth suit. So I really believe it. I believe that's what it is. It's just a dimension, but it's, I mean, we see Korah and his men being swallowed down to it.
Yeah.
And the Bible talks about, you know, the words for grave and for hell and all that, and they're always down below.
And one
So who's to say?
in James 2, it talks about how Christ, when he rose after having descended.
Yeah, right, exactly. And
He
they
went
talk
over
about,
there.
he went to,
But if you're right and we're talking about dimensions, that none of those words are really even relevant.
right, and how can we know? know. I mean, there's some
Yeah.
things we don't know.
We don't, and we're never, and
Until we do.
he thinks we would have it, you know, it's like why we don't, I mean, what bothered me when I first became a Christian is why isn't there stuff left from Jesus?
Yeah.
Where's the chalice? Where's everything? Because if he was, why didn't somebody stave him? And I think it's because we would have worshipped him.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
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 Like the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah,
It's gone. You know, the next time we see it's in heaven.
yeah,
So, and I think the one on earth was built that pattern after the one in heaven. It's like the tabernacle was patterned after the one in heaven.
okay.
So it's not that they came down or anything, it's just they were patterned after that.
Jay.
Yes.
there's a picture of
The hollow earth,
that. Yeah.
show everybody there if they can see it. Oh. Yeah, that's what they show, it's like the poles is where the openings are. I don't know if you guys can all see that. But kind of an interesting thing, look it up sometime, it's kind of interesting reading.
Newearth.com.
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 Okay, cool. Well, let me read Matthew Henry's commentary on Genesis 10:25. He says, the reason of the name Peleg, it's talking about this, because in his days, that is, about the time of his birth, when his name was given him, was the earth divided among the children of men that were to inhabit it, which could be true, because split. And he says, either when Noah divided it by an orderly distribution of it, where he said, okay, you go take this part, you go take this part. So that's what a lot of them are saying, that's what it's divided. They go, you move over there, you move over there, we're dividing it up that way. Well, that would say nations, I think. I think we would use the word nations, if you were dividing nations, or people, you're dividing people, not the earth. And it says, either when Noah divided it by an orderly distribution of it, as Joshua divided the land of Canaan by lot, or when upon the refusal to comply with that division, God in justice divided them by the confusion of tongues. And see here, he's getting ahead again. He's getting ahead to the Tower of Babel, which hasn't happened yet. And he says, whichsoever of these was the occasion, pious Heber, the father of Peleg, saw cause to perpetuate, my English not too good today, the remembrance of it in the name of his son. And justly may our sons be called by the same name, for in our days, in another sense, is the earth, the church, most wretchedly divided, which I tend to agree with him on that. But you see what he's doing and what a lot of other people have done, and when they translate the Bible into the translations, they're saying, oh, well, this is when the Tower of Babel happened. Well, we're still several years away from that. So you realize something had to happen there, and I believe it was that earth splitting. Let me tell you something. True science and the rightly divided Word of God always work hand in hand. Always. The problem is sometimes people don't rightly divide the Word of God, or science is not right. And people say, well, how can science not be right? Well, like I said before, 200 years ago, if you go to the doctor, they take a pint of blood out of you. They had these grotesque, big old cutting blades that they'd rip you open and take blood, and that's supposed to heal you. Well, that was the science of the day. They're finding out now that Einstein's theory of relativity, there's things in there that don't work. I mean, a lot of it does, but some of it doesn't. Modern math, I mean, we can literally send a spaceship the size of a car to Mars because of math and land it on Mars, and it's successful. That's amazing to me. And if you look at you ever seen a Nautilus shell? How it's like a corkscrew. If you cut it in half, it has these lines. There's a mathematical formula to that. You take flowers, there's a mathematical formula to the petals. It gives me chills. It's a crazy thing. I think God is a mathematician. The conch shell.
Yeah.
Same thing.
That is also, that's why math is the best thing to study.
It's awesome. But you know what? There are things in math that we don't know yet.
Yeah.
If you go to Wikipedia and just type in math problems, and I think that'll pull up, there's several things that they can't figure out yet.
7 unsolvable.
Is it?
Yeah, there's 7 unsolvable.
You're a math teacher, so you would know.
Yes.
Well, computers are all on off, 1 or 0.
1 or 0.
1 or 0. Everything we do is 1 or 0.
And then amazing,
Black or
just
white.
a 1 and a 0.
You know,
Do you
right or
know
wrong.
that's called Boolean algebra?
Yeah.
1 and 0.
Yeah.
And the man who invented it because he wanted to invent a totally useless math for the beauty of it. And look what his math has done.
Change the world.
Yes.
Change the world.
Of course, he
Wow,
was
that's incredible.
deceased once it happened, but I just always think that's so funny.
That is incredible.
Apple's richest company in the world, based on 1 or 0.
1s and 0s.
Yeah. Well, we know that when it tells us, the Bible tells us, Revelation 21:1, when this earth is recreated, it's going to be destroyed by fire this time. Or God gave us the rainbow saying, I promise I'll never destroy the earth by flood. Well, it's gonna be recreated and there'll be no seas, no oceans. Well, I believe that's how it was. And the other, there'll be the third pristine earth. The first one was when God in Genesis 1:1 created the earth and the heavens. It was pristine. And I believe that's the way it was. I believe all the water was subterranean. It was an earth without oceans. The second time it was created was in Genesis 1, verse 3 through 31, the end of the chapter. And that's when God recreated it out of stuff. The first time he created it was out of stuff that didn't exist. And the second time he created it, the Hebrew word says he created out of things that already existed. You know, see, we already had an earth that was destroyed, and then he begins to recreate it. He makes light before he ever makes the sun, it says. And we know in heaven too, the light's going to come from him. So that'll be the third pristine heaven. Now, let's go to Genesis chapter 11. We don't have much time, but we'll get into it anyway. Genesis 11, let's read 1 through 4. And I'm reading the English Standard Version, ESV. It says, now the whole earth had one language and the same words. Now this is after the earth being split, Babel. The whole earth had one language and the same words. And as people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar, which is modern day Iraq, down around southern Iraq. And it says, and they settled there. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. And let's make a name for ourselves that we be dispersed, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. Well, like I said, Shinar was in the area of Iraq. You know, when we went into Iraq, they went down to where Babylon used to be. And remember the hanging gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the world? They were just down the road from the Tower of Babel. They've actually found traces of the tower. If you go on to, what's it called? There's nothing I have it on here. It's a website, and it tells the story about it. It's unmuseum.com. Unmuseum, yeah, .com. Like an unmuseum. Go there and look up the Tower of Babel. It'll tell you about what they found over there. Pretty interesting. But it says these guys want to start building. The King James says, let's build a tower that may reach into heaven. Well, there's no words in Hebrew for may reach. Matter of fact, if you look in the King James, those 2 words are in the italics. Anything in the King James Bible you see italics means it wasn't really there. The people that translated it put it in there for the continuity, to help you understand what you read. So remember that anytime you read King James, if it's italicized, it wasn't there. Okay? So what they were doing, they really weren't trying to build a tower that would go to heaven. Matter of fact, if you look at the tower, I sat down and they found, let me read this to you first, and I'll show you the drawing I made. I'll show you a little bit what it goes. It says, there are no words in the Hebrew for may reach, which means there is nothing in the text to suggest that its height was to be as high as heaven. Rather, the top would be dedicated to the heavens, with signs of the zodiac portrayed as visible objects of worship. Up to this time, the whole race not only had one language, but one form of idolatrous worship. I mean, they were so away from God, which is crazy. And you'd think 2 generations, 3 generations after Noah, they would still be serving God, but they weren't. They'd already fallen away. When God confounded their language, they began to disagree on religion and other matters, branching off into sects and parties. A Babylonian description of the Tower of Babel, discovered in 1876, indicates there was a grand court 900 by 1,156 feet. Let me pull this up for you. Get my master word again. What I did, I took all these and I drew them up on AutoCAD. This is the Empire State Building compared to the Tower of Babel. So it really wasn't very big. I mean, it's 300 feet tall, we know that. These are your grand courtyards here, okay? And you have 2 of them, this big one and the smaller one. You had the tower here. This actually had a fence around it, and they had little like booths in here and stuff where you go buy stuff for your gods, your idols, and all that kind of junk. Anyway, it goes on and says, the grand court was 900 by 1,156 feet, which is this, which is pretty big. And the smaller one, 450 feet by 1,056, this one. It says, inside of each was a platform with walls around it, having 4 gates on each side. In the center stood the tower with many small shrines at the base dedicated to various gods. The first stage measured 300 feet square, which is pretty big, and 110 feet high. The second measured 260 feet square, and 60 feet high. The third, 200 feet square, 20 foot high. The fourth, 770 foot square, 24, and it just goes on up like that. And at the top, at the 60 by 80 foot top, was a sanctuary for the god Baal Merodach, was the god they worshiped. So if you read all through the Old Testament, you see a bunch of different gods they worshiped. Baal was one of them. The fire god, I can't remember his name right now, but they worshipped it, burned their kids for him. They just burned them alive to this god. I mean, and God hated that, and I understand. But like I say, this is the Empire State Building, and you can see the difference. And you see that's not going to go to heaven, is it? I mean, come on, it's not going to reach anywhere near the atmosphere up there. So, anyway, it says the builders evidently finished the tower because the work was stopped on the city only. If you read the scriptures, it says that God stopped it, and it was just the city that wasn't completed. One ancient Babylonian tablet reads, "The building of this illustrious tower offended the gods," which it did offend the gods. "In a night they threw down what they had built. They scattered them abroad and made strange their speech. Their progress was impeded. They wept hot tears for Babylon." And this is pagan stuff, history, telling what happened. The builders, some people believe that the builders of it were giants. It could be that the angels fell by that time again, and there were giants again in the land. We know they came back sometime, we just don't know when. I believe, without a doubt, that the Egyptian pyramids were built by giants. And I had always wondered about that because you never heard it talked about, and I had never seen hieroglyphics with giants until I looked on the internet. And they're all over the place. And I'm like, obviously that's what it was. Matter of fact, I think I told you guys, I read a Christian Egyptologist that he was over their stuff, and he knew about the giants. And they told him the first day, they said, if you start publishing things and talking about giants, you'll never be welcome in this country again. And why do they hide it? Is it one of those things that Satan doesn't want people? I mean, obviously I think it is. But he was not welcome to share all that. So, and here's the link to that museum. It's on the web page. Let's go on to Genesis chapter 10, verse 8 through 12. We're going to finish up with this pretty quick. 10.
Yeah, okay.
Did you say 8 through 12?
Oh, 11. I got it wrong there. Yeah, it's 11. Chapter 11, verse 8. And next week I'll come back and tell you a little more about Nimrod. Let's see. Where was it? Maybe. No, Genesis 11, 5 through 9. I'm sorry. I gave you the wrong one. 11, 5 through 9. But the Lord came down to look at the city and the tower the people were building. Look, he said, the people are united and they all speak the same language. After this, nothing they set out to do will be impossible for them. Come, let's go down and confuse the people with different languages, then they won't be able to understand each other. Now, I think God's talking to Jesus.
Absolutely.
And the Holy Spirit, just like he did the very first.
That's right.
And he says in verse 8, in that way the Lord scattered them all over the world, and they stopped building the city. That is why the city was called Babel. And Babel actually means confusion. That word means confusion. It says, because that is where the Lord confused the people with different languages. And in this way, he scattered them all over the world. So, in our society, I think we're like 100 times worse and more evil than it was then. I believe that all along.
And it's exponentially changed things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and 20 years ago, who would have ever thought we'd have what we had? And then 5 years ago even. It's just like you said, it's exponential.
I think it's hastening in time.
Yeah, well, you drew there the power of unity. There's power in unity. We know as a Christian, there's power in unity. Ecclesiastes tells us that the Bible tells us, Moses said, one can put 1,000 to flight, but two can put 10,000 to flight when you're in spiritual warfare. As Christians, if we pray by ourselves, there's power in that. But if we have two of us, guess what? There's a lot more power in prayer when we agree. If you have a three, Ecclesiastes says a three-braided cord is very strong, hard to break. So we need to realize there's power in unity as Christians, and we need to walk in unity. We need to walk in love and walk with each other.
Brother.
And not be saying, well, look what they did. Look what they did. We got to stop that nonsense and walk as Christians. Anyway, we'll stop there. And next week we're going to talk about Nimrod.
Jay, can I ask a question?
Yes.
You're saying that before this tower, the earth, the land was divided,
Yes.
and there were people all over.
Yep.
So when it says the whole world had one language, all those people still had the same language.
Right.
But those people that were all over in this divided earth didn't know about the tower, right?
Probably not. Probably not.
Okay.
News probably didn't spread real quickly.
But
And
their
then-
languages were changed anyway.
Right. And even after that,
So it
more
wasn't
people were
just the
spread.
people at the tower that had.
I don't know, I think it probably was all over the world, but I'm not sure, we don't know.
Okay, so why were they wanted to build the tower because they were worried about being scattered over the face of the earth.
Right.
Why were they so worried about that?
You know, I've thought about that, and that's the reason what they said. I think what they were trying to do was if you read Josephus, who was a famous Jewish historian, he said that Nimrod, and we'll talk about this more as we talk about Nimrod, he said that he would get revenge on God if God ever had flooded the earth again. I mean, that's how uppity-minded he was.
Yeah.
Some people believe that Nimrod was actually a giant, and they were so wicked. The Bible talks about the giants as mighty men. Well, it talks about him being a mighty man. Well, I think what the deal was, he was trying to keep all his people together, this kingdom he was building, and so they didn't want to be, he didn't especially want to be spread out because he was subjugating them and lording it over them. And I think that's why they didn't want to be spread apart and split up. So, and like I say, we'll talk about a little more about that. And the whole deal with the tower, he said he wanted to build it high enough that it wouldn't flood the top of it. So that's why I was saying when we talk about the Bible says in Genesis, the flood was 15
Can't make
feet.
the water go that high.
Yeah, well, and if you think about it, if Mount Everest was here and all that and it flooded, well, obviously it's going to go past the 300-foot tower. If it's going to cover a 32,000-foot mountain, you know, or even Mount Hood's what?
Yeah, Mount Ararat,
I mean,
they find clamshells up there.
Yep.
So obviously when it was growing still, but that's pretty impressive stuff.
I found fossilized coral up on a mountain above Salt Lake City.
Wow.
But that was from what they call Lake Bonneville, which the Great Salt Lake is a remnant of Lake Bonneville that went all the way up into Wyoming and Idaho and over, I think, to Nevada. It was huge, but it was a remnant of that flood, I think. And so it's all, of course, all salt now because it was a freshwater lake then, but it's all salt now because there's no way the water can run out. It all just pours in and dies.
This says,
It's awesome stuff.
this says that Nimrod was the first world dictator and he founded Babel.
Yep. And he also founded Nineveh in another kind of that kind of thing.
He didn't learn anything.
Well, he was a wicked dude, and he was a hunter, but not just of animals, but also of men. So that tells you how wicked he was. Anyway, we're going to stop right there. And
Jay, I really enjoyed this, brother.
good. I love this stuff.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we'll talk more about that next week. Talk about old Nimrod. Actually, his name is pronounced as actually Nimrod.
What was that word search?
Word search, yeah. Word search 10.
So that was one left?
Yeah, with all
You
the
say
different.
it's free?
No.
Oh, no.
But it's not real expensive either. Let me show it to you here. But I use that for almost all my Bible study. I didn't like it at first. What I did, I had done some translation, some work for Dave. They were doing a large print Bible and they needed people to proofread. So I did a serious bunch of proofreading. They gave me this with all his notes on it. It's already had the next Bible anyway and some books. But it had an earlier version of word search. Well, I tried to update it once when I talked to them. They said, well, we're selling this one pretty cheap, you know. So, but it took me a while to get used to it after using the other one. But man, it's awesome. You can put all these different versions. You got hundreds and hundreds of books that you can go into here to look at. I add books a lot. They'll have like free books sometimes you can download. But it's an amazing program. Like I think you can get it for $25, $30. Word search. And word search version 10. But like I said, I've got 3 Bibles on there right now. Just the ASD. I want to put the New Living Translation. It's like $40. So I just go on there on the Bible Gateway for that. But if you really want to get in serious studying, get something like that. And the Hebrew, the Greek, the Strong's is free. Days you have to pay something for it. I'm not sure how much, but anyways, good stuff there. And you can get Vine's Expository Dictionary. You can get anything you want put on there. Just all paid for it. So anyway, any prayer requests, praise reports?